Which standard weapon is good for you by a most sane Genshin streamer? I am a little bit worried about this clip.
I put Vervina sword and got Harp. Wait, that's actually not bad though. Unless you already had like a bunch of bows. Harp's actually good. Harp is probably the best 5-star standard weapon you could get alongside Jade Spear, I think.
Is this true? Is this true? Let's think about it. What are the 5-star standard weapons? And we're not gonna include the like signature weapon for standard characters that came out later, like Bacon and the Technity Bow, right? It's really like the ones that were out in 1.0. Let's think about this. So when it comes to bows, right, you have Harp and Amos Bow. For catalysts, you have Lost Prayers and Skyward Atlas. For polearms, you have Jadewing Spear and Skyward Spine. For claymores, you have Wolf's Gravestone and the Unforged. And for swords, you have Aquila Favonia and Skyward Blade. So, personally, right, I have Skyward Harp and Primordial Jade. And I don't really use either of them. The only character on which I pretty consistently use Skyward Harp is Fischl. Oh yeah, I forgot Skyward Pride. Whatever. It doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. It's Pride instead of Unforged. Whatever. It doesn't matter. They both... I only use Harp on Fischl, and it's not even really better than Stringless anymore since Dendro came out, right? I only use it because my Stringless isn't fully leveled and I don't want to farm for it. The stats that it gives are pretty good. But it's all... I feel like it's also important to know, or to look at, like, the characters that can actually use it. And it's like... It's a fine weapon for basically anyone to get, because it's always going to be, like, one of the alternatives you can go, and often slightly above the others. But not above by that. Personally, I think that the best standard weapon is Aquila Favonia. Because it's a high base attack sword that doesn't force you to use Mistsplitter on Bennett. Aquila is the first sword I got, and I'm fucking glad. Like, it was the first standard weapon I got, because I pulled on the fucking Aquila Favonia banner in 1.0 because I was a dumbass. And I am glad I got it. Skyward Blade is also nice, that's true, because you can also use it on Bennett. Its passive and second stat are basically useless. So what? How about Lost Prayers? You know, Lost Prayers is actually interesting. Because for the longest time, it was pretty dog shit. But recently, a few characters, like, they've started actually releasing non-Klee catalyst carries. And, like, I know that Klee has some pretty nice teams now, but it's still... Yeah. They've started releasing more catalyst carries, and a lot of them are actually focused on maintaining fairly high field time. Weird to see the not blue Aquila. Yeah, that's true. Pre-Ascension Aquila. Damn. Yeah, I think Lost Prayer is a lot better than it used to be. Just because the quality of catalyst carries has gone up a lot. I think we've had more and more support for either really good free-to-play 4-star options, like the Fontaine craftables that are like actually kind of insane stat sticks, if you can make them work. And just like making old weapons work better on characters, like Stringless on Fischl with Dendro. On top of having a lot of releases that are not polearm and bow characters. And the answer that like Harp and Jadewing Spear were like arguably the best two standard weapons. I think was a pretty accurate assessment back in the day. But I don't think I would agree with that anymore. You know what? Let's actually do a tier list for Genshin Impact 5-star weapon tier maker. My GOAT, good stat stick, fine. Why does this exist? So, my GOAT, Aquila Favonia. Yes, sir. And you know, unironically, I think an effect of Aquila that is often not talked about, but that actually matters a lot more than you'd think, is the healing you get from it. I don't know how many times it saved my life, but I just know it's a lot. Because you can proc it upon getting hit, not upon taking damage, which means if you iframe with Bennett Burst, you can still proc the heal from it. In my opinion, it should be B. It's really only good on Bennett, and the weapon's value shouldn't only be based on how good it is on one character. I disagree with that, because, like, you're not pulling weapons without knowing what character you're gonna put it on, unless you're, like, really new to the game. You pull for weapons for the characters, not characters for the weapons. So all that matters is how good it is on the character you're gonna use it on. On top of that, Bennett is a character that is very good and has use in a lot of different teams. Not just that, but a lot of different archetypes. Not only is Bennett, like, really fucking good in a lot of hyper carry teams, he's also, like, the best option for a lot of teams that want pyro application just because of his C6. A lot of teams that want an on-fielder pyro. Like, he's just good in everything. Anyways. Aquila is my GOAT. It is what it is. Alright. Good stat sticks. We have. Where is it? Skyward Harp. Skyward Harp is a good stat stick. Lost Prayers was a good stat stick. I'm not going to include the Skyward Atlas. I'm going to put it in fine, because it can be a good stat stick, but there's too many characters on which it doesn't work that well because it's attack, and not every character scales with attack. But also, the characters that do scale with attack often want attack buffs, and so it scales worse with external attack buffs. So it's overall, I don't quite like it as much as Lost Prayers. There's definitely a lot of situations where it's, like, as good, if not even better. But yeah. If you haven't looked at it, by the way, I think a lot of you guys would be surprised by how much damage you actually get from the fucking cloud. Okay, let's just put all the standard weapons here so I can fucking think properly. Yeah, Jadewing Spear can go here. The thing about Jadewing Spear is, like, it is a good stat stick, but there's just so few polearm carries that don't use the catch, you know? So it gets hurt a lot by the existence of the catch, and it makes it so that it's basically just a Shao weapon, and unlike Bennett, Shao is not a character that's used in fucking half the teams in the game, you know? I use it on Hu Tao, so do I, but it's, like, in some situations it's slightly better than a High Refined Dragon's Bane, and hell, if you don't have a High Refined Dragon's Bane, obviously it's nice, but it's still more in line with the 4-star options than the 5-star option. One option. Like, if there were more characters like Risley that used a polearm, right, that actually wanted to stay on field and that used a polearm, then that, like, it would help the weapon a lot. Right now, though, I definitely think there's an argument to put it down to fine because of its lack of users. Sino does. The thing about Sino is a lot of his teams are, a lot of his teams have him doing a decent amount of transformative damage, which makes which weapon he's using matter a little bit less because he's doing less talent damage. Every account only has one catch, having Jade Cutter in a different unit is just really valuable. The thing is, like, it's not. Like, what polearm characters are you using at the same time that want Jadewing Spear slash the catch? Like, okay, you're using Xiangling Raiden? It's better to go Fav on Raiden and catch on Xiangling than any combination that uses Jadewing Spear. So, like, what's the point? Okay, you're doing one team with Xiangling, one team with Raiden. Well, you only have one Bennett, so which team is getting Bennett? Is it the Xiangling team? Then okay, Jadewing Spear is pretty decent on Raiden. If you're doing like Raiden Taser, but Raiden Taser is not very. I don't disagree with you that there are good teams. I also aggravate Raiden. Yeah, I guess. But then it makes the higher attack on Jadewing Spear matter a bit less, right? I don't know. It's definitely better than Atlas. I don't know. Atlas is actually pretty decent. Lost Prayer is greater than Atlas in teams with a Bennett buff. Yes, but also a lot of the Catalyst characters have teams where they don't use Bennett. Right? If you actually look at the Catalyst characters individually, Risley has a bunch of non-Bennett teams. Wanderer with Farina now has non-Bennett teams. Like, I agree that it's that Jadewing Spear is overall better than Atlas. I don't think it's overall better than Atlas enough to put it in a whole different tier. Skyward Blade probably goes into fine as well. Aquila is good for one character, Jade is good for multiple. How does work? Jade is, like, not even really best in slot for one character who isn't that great. Aquila is the best in slot for one of the best characters in the game that's played in, like, a lot of teams. There are significantly more teams where Bennett Aquila would be good than there are teams where Jadewing Spear anything would be good. Obviously, I'm talking about actual, like, teams that people play, not just, like, ooh, technical combinations of characters, like, fucking Shao, Wanderer, Shao, Child, you know? Aquila Bennett better than Fav Bennett? It depends. The main thing is, part of what makes Fav weapons so good is that they alleviate ER requirements on characters, and that lets you build the other stats that you care about. Right? But with Bennett, there are no other stats that you care about outside of Farina. You only care about ER, which means if you are able to reach your ER requirements without the ER weapon, the value you gain from Fav is significantly lower. All you're getting from the Fav is alleviating ER requirements on the rest of your team, which is still significant. It's still nice, but you're losing a lot from it. The reason why Fav is really good on characters like Sing So, for example, is because Sing So's ER requirements with Fav are significantly higher, or without Fav, sorry, are significantly higher, which means that if you are reaching his ER requirements, his damage with something like Jade Cutter versus his damage with something like Fav, the Jade Cutter will be slightly ahead, but not so much that there are no situations where Fav would be better. With Bennett, his damage doesn't go up, right? Like, you can build a little bit more damage with him, and I guess there are some teams where that matters a little bit, but most of them it doesn't. Because Bennett's overall damage output in a team tends to be incredibly low. 270 ER Bennett? I have that on Aquila. That's not true. That's not true. I'm at 220 right now. Because I'm on instructor. You can definitely make an argument for it being here. The thing is yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I'm putting it up here. You convinced me. All of this to say, right? Instructor being good, and being as good as it is basically enough to single-handedly make Skyward Blade go from here to here. Just because...
If my calculations are correct,
Shut up.
Wandering brook.
It's a lot harder to reach your ER requirements on a 4-star set than on a 5-star set. Personally, I can, because I've been fucking keeping... Yeah, like, I've been keeping my instructor pieces, but I know a lot of people don't. I know most of you guys don't have an instructor set with a lot of ER. I think most of you have an instructor set, because I fucking talk about it often enough. But I don't think most of you actually have enough ER on it. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Wolf's Gravestone goes in fine. The main issue with Wolf's Gravestone is that unless I'm fucking cornered, like for some reason I'm doubting myself here, but it can't proc off field, right? Yeah, it can't proc off field, and it's not the same sort of buff as something like Farina's buff that goes through snapshots and that is dynamic. And so what that means is it's basically unusable on basically every off-field claymore, right? Because not only are they not gonna proc it, but even if they could proc it, it's not gonna increase their damage because fucking Beto snapshots, man. Like, it's Jover for you. Goes through snapshot. There are some stat buffs that can increase your damage post snapshot. So
Is due to receive a batch of.
for example,
Let's make haste.
Everybody stand back! Ha!
I think this is one of them. It's doing 17k,
Steady as stone.
and now it's 19k. Because Geo Resonance's damage percent is a dynamic buff. It goes through snapshot. Farina's damage percent buff is also something that's dynamic and that goes through snapshots. Oh yeah, Yelan burst or Yelan ascension passive, whatever that happens when you have your burst up. Is there any kind of attack buff that is dynamic? I don't know. I don't think so. I think unironically, if Wolf's Gravestone's buff was dynamic, it would go up to here. All damage percent bonus is dynamic, but not elemental damage bonus. The thing is, not all of it is. There is no rule for it. Like, the reality is, they started out with no buffs being dynamic, basically. And then they realized that it kind of limited their options for design. And so they made a bunch of exceptions. The closest thing to it that you can get is, like, generally, if it doesn't show up on your stat page, then it's a dynamic buff that can't be snapshot. But even then, there's exceptions to that. Anyways, who else is good on? I mean, it's fine on Diluc, but, like, Diluc is not very good. It's fine on Ella, but same thing. And on top of that, on her, it's, like, kind of anti-synergy. Because most of the time, right, when you proc this, it means the enemy's under 30% HP. They would generally die to your burst anyway. So, like, you're not gaining anything from the proc. It's damage that, like, will be on your DPS calc, but that doesn't actually count, right? It's overkill damage, right? It's kind of like as if, I mean, for those of you that play League of Legends, right? It's kind of like saying that Collector is the best item in the game because it makes you deal fucking 10,000 true damage. And, like, yeah, when you look at damage from items, It is by far the highest in the game, but also it only does 10,000 or 9,999 damage to enemies that have fucking like 5% HP, right? For those of you that don't play League, well, I don't know, man. On the bright side, you don't play League of Legends. On the less bright side, you don't understand this analogy. You probably still do. It's pretty fucking simple, man. Yeah, but point being, right? Overkill damage isn't real damage. And because endless damage is very backloaded, if you're not overkilling, right? If you're hitting an enemy that's like 50% health with your burst, it's gonna bring them to like 10% health, and you're not gonna have had the attack buff from 50 to 10% because you did it all in one shot. And if the enemy is under 30%, in most situations, your burst would be enough to one-shot them anyways without the attack buff. Right? Yeah. Sometimes it can be good if you can manage to kill the first wave with normal attacks. Sure. So because of that, right? Collector. Wolf's Gravestone ends up being, in most situations, just a weapon where the passive is have 20% attack, because that's the passive you always get. Right? And I mean, that's often better than the 4-star options, because 5-star stat sticks have more stats than 4-star stat sticks, but it's also not that far ahead. Plus, in any situations where you get external attack buffs, Serpent Spine goes fucking hard. But yeah, all in all, like, it's fine. It's a fine stat stick that is a decent 5-star stat stick for a few niche characters. And because of that, I don't feel comfortable putting it up here with Lost Prayers, Skyward Harp, and Skyward Pride. Listen. The only thing that can make Skyward Pride good is the character being bad. All Skyward Pride has going for it is that it has a bunch of damage on the weapon itself that doesn't rely on your character actually doing things, right? It is unironically a pretty good option for both Ella and for Fréminet, and arguably Fréminet's best option, because he's even worse than Ella, right? It's not good for Navia, Beto, not great. Like, think of it this way, all right? Before looking at the stats of the weapon, you look at the passive. The passive is increase all damage by 8%. That's kind of not great. The second part of the passive is you get damage, but only if you stay on field, right? So it doesn't do anything for any of the off-fielders. So for any of the off-fielders, this isn't great. And then what you're looking at is a high base attack, ER substat 5-star weapon. And ER substat ain't it in most situations. Why is increase all damage bad? It's not that increasing all damage is bad, it's that 8% is not a very large number. Like, this is 12%, and then another 28%. Anyways, like, again, right, if you are playing specifically a character that spends enough time on field that you will actually proc all the blades, has ER requirements high enough that you want the ER substat, but not so high that you want a weapon like Fav, then it's a fine option. But nothing more than that. Just fine. And the Battle Pass Claymore is arguably the best of the Battle Pass weapons, which restricts the amount of people that would benefit from this significantly, because anyone who has a Serpent Spine won't like this nearly as much, right? Doesn't Pride being so good on Ella mean it's fine at least? But it's not so good on her. It's a pretty decent option that can be competitive in the right situations with some of her other 5-star options. And she is the perfect character for it. She is a physical character, so you build physical damage and get Super Conduct, which increases the proc's damage, that needs ER and spends time on field enough to actually proc all the Skyward Spine is even worse, man. It's like, okay. Skyward Spine, and I want to preface with this, Skyward Spine is a decent option on Raiden. Alright? It's like, actually competitive with the catch on Raiden. But like, being competitive with a free-to-play option isn't good. That's like the bare fucking minimum. And it's only on one character. Shenhe, this is not a good weapon on Shenhe. Because it's not Fav. Same reason Calamity Queller is not good on Shenhe. Because it's not Fav. Xianling can have the catch and Raiden Skyward. Or even better, Xianling can have the catch and Raiden has Fav. I mean, fuck, bring it back to what was said earlier when talking about Jade Wing Spear. Even in the Bennetless Raiden teams, a lot of them prefer Fav to Jade Wing Spear or Skyward Spine. Fav is just too fucking good, man. Like, when you're looking at, like, Taser Raiden with, like... I guess now people do it with Farina, right? So, like, Jean, Singto, Farina, or Kazuha, Singto, Yelan, right? Something like that. With R3+, you can proc Fav twice per Raiden uptime. Which is so fucking good. It really is. Yeah, okay, if you have C2, ignore what I said, obviously. But, like, it's just so nice. Like, unironically, for people who play, like, actually non-Hyperbloom Raiden, Fav is a very, very underrated option on her. It is not great in teams where she is, like, the main / only source of damage. So like the hyper teams, but it tends to be her best non-engulfing weapon in teams where damage is more split. So in Rational or in Taser. If you have enough AR on your other characters, is it still better to use Fav? That's the wrong way to look at it. Like, yeah, if you have enough AR on your other characters, it's better to use a weapon that doesn't give you energy. But if you use a weapon that gives you energy, you get to build less ER and more damage on those other characters. Probably worse than Dendro MC. In most situations, yes, but there's a few situations for Kole. Mainly, she's pretty decent in some Nilo teams. And she can be pretty good in some Aggravate teams, although I don't tend to like her. I think she's very unpleasant to play, but anyways. I did not plan for this to turn into Fav propaganda. I'm sorry. Well, let's move back to the standard weapons. Amos Bow probably goes on fine, I guess. I don't know. You know, I think I would have put it here pre 2.7 or something. But Aqua release brought Amos to its knees, and Hunter's Path release brought a fucking baseball bat to its face. You know? Both are limited, that is true. But it's just not good enough on enough good characters. And it struggles a lot from being a weapon that's only good on charge attackers, because a lot of people don't fucking enjoy the charge attack playstyle. And it becomes just so doomed if you pull it and you just don't like it. Is it good on Tiltnutty? It's alright. It's not great though. But yeah, so this is my overall thoughts on the strength of the standard 5-star weapons. And again, right, like this is I titled this in a way to reflect that there is very much some favoritism going on here. Very much so. It is my GOAT, and I can't bring myself to put it any lower than this. There is a fair argument that Skyward Blade's release brought Aquila down a little bit. If you're one of the poor souls who got Ali Flash somehow, it also is a little bit less valuable. do, 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 do,